know if you noticed or not, but there's an LS3 in that 69 Camaro. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for joining me on the channel. As you saw in the last video, we got this drivetrain fully installed. Just ended that video, starting a new one right now. Still plenty to do, so let's get right into it. So while you guys were away, just quickly measured for push rods. Plenty of videos and detailed write-ups on how to do this online, but basically you want to make sure that the valve you're checking is on the base circle. So if you're measuring the exhaust valve, you want to make sure that the intake valve is closing. That way you know the exhaust valve is going to be on the base circle and vice versa. So we just measured for push rods on both an intake and exhaust valve on both sides. This is probably overkill for a basically stock motor. I haven't milled the heads, decked the block or anything like that, but it's always good to double check. You use this adjustable push rod length tool, basically unscrew it every full turn is 50 thousandths, get to 0 lash, and then determine what your length at 0 lash is, and then add preloads. You can see some of my math over here. On the exhaust, we got about 7.3375. LS7 lifters are recommended 70 thousandths preload, so you can see the math there. For intake and exhaust, we'll probably split the difference here and just order the 7.400 push rods, which is, I believe, the stock length anyways. But again, never hurts to check this stuff. I've got the tool. I've done enough LS motors where I have it. Always good to check. Also, aftermarket push rods are going to be thicker, stronger, less prone to bending or breaking or whatever. So push rods, we'll get those ordered. Up next, like I said, there's plenty to do, but I think I'd like to bolt up some of the accessories here. Now that I think the motor is in here for good, I think we're safe to do that. So we can start down low, the lowest part. We'll test out our new notch here. I have no reason to believe that it won't fit, but let's get our AC bracket bolted back up, our alternator bolted back up, water pump, power steering. We can make that power steering line. I got a custom fitting there that's going to convert it to 6 AN, I'm sorry. We'll get the power steering pump all mounted up, and then maybe get some belts on and basically fully dress the front of the motor. And then who knows what we'll do after that, but let's knock those out and go from there. Accessories, done. There they are, all of them. So this is kind of the whole goal I was going for, and I've talked about in previous videos, is I kept the accessories down low, tight to the motor. It looks like a small block Chevy. You don't have AC hanging out way over here. We still got to get rid of this thing, but alternator way up here, nothing. It's all nice and tight. AC compressor's way down there, alternator's way down there. Nice neat power steering right up here is about the highest thing you're going to see. This will even tuck down a little more once the belt's on there, which we need to order. And this will fill in right here with the intake tube and all that. But accessories are done. Pretty psyched about how that looks. Everything fits, everything looks good. All the belts, all the pulleys seem like they're going to line up perfectly, just as they should. It's basically the same motor they came off of. Also made a high pressure power steering line using a Russell 290-degree fittings and a couple custom fittings. A fitting that adapts the 69 Camaro steering box to 6AN, or I'm sorry, yeah, 6AN. 6AN PTFE hose all the way over to the 2010 Camaro, or LS, power steering pump and reservoir. Down here we got another special fitting to 6AN right there. Cut that to length, made both ends nice and easy. This line should be good for, you know, the kind of pressure that the high pressure power steering side sees. This is the stock 69 Camaro low pressure return, and I believe we can just trim this and stick it right up on there. You know, just use the factory stuff, fill the reservoir, and we should be good to go. So yeah, cross those both off the list. Accessories look awesome. Looking at the list, we got the parts. I touched on most of this in the previous video, but let's go over the fuel system and finish up the last few parts here. So I made a little diagram for you guys just so you can understand what's going on here. So here is your basic return fuel system. Every system is going to be a little bit different, but this is how you're going to do it with a stock fuel rail and an in-tank pump in most cases. So here's the tank. You saw in the previous video, we installed the fuel pump and both the feed and return fittings. So the feed is going to come up from the tank. You can go through a filter. That's optional because you already have the sock in the tank. I'm going to be running one. Comes up into the regulator, which is going to regulate pressure at the fuel rails. In this case, for most LS applications at 58 psi, you have a gauge on there. So that fuel comes up through the regulator. Regulator maintains 58 psi on this side to the fuel rails and all 8 injectors, depending on throttle load and all that. So it's always going to maintain 58 psi depending on your vacuum situation. Any excess fuel is going to come down out the return, go all the way back to the return, and go into the tank. So basically, this loop right here is constantly running fuel, and just what's needed is sent to the rail. So if you're just at idle in traffic, most of the fuel, you know, 90 plus 95% of the fuel is going right back to the tank. And, you know, depending on what fuel pump you have and the size of your lines, at wide open throttle, you know, almost 80 to 90% of the fuel could be going right to the fuel rails here, and you'll have very little going through the return. So yeah, basically just a loop. Just wanted you guys to be able to see and visualize how that's going to work. So now let's go over some of the other components that we got to make this whole thing work. So here's what we got. Most important, regulator. You can get cheap regulators out there, but in my opinion, fuel system is typically not where you want to skimp, especially a regulator. If this thing fails or delivers the wrong pressure, it could cost you an engine. Same with most of your fuel system components. I really try not to skimp. So Aeromotive, this kit right here, the regulator kit, was like 250 bucks. You can get regulators as cheap as like 50, but again, not worth it for me. Aeromotive is the #1 brand for fuel pressure regulators. They've been doing this forever, so nice to have a good high quality piece. Regulator comes with a gauge that's going to mount where that brass plug is, so you can see what the fuel pressure is. Dial in the fuel pressure up here with an Allen key, and you can see what you're doing. 6AN fittings that'll go to the return, feed, and outlet. This is a Russell inline fuel filter that we're going to put on the frame rail. A couple of, I forget what you call these, line separators or whatever, that we can use to organize the feed and return, keep it nice and neat from the tank and then back. And then this is important right here. Because we're running stock fuel rails, we need a way to adapt this GM quick disconnect fuel fitting to 6AN. And that's what this fitting is going to do. So we'll pop that right on there. And now we can run our 6AN line to the rails right here. So my plan is, we already have the fuel line hanging out kind of in the frame rail, ready to be routed. So we're going to run that up. I think my plan is to mount the regulator here-ish. Maybe I can use one of these existing bolts or tabs or whatever. Mount the regulator there. So we'll have the feed and return go to there. Then we'll run a small feed line over behind the intake, nice and hidden and clean, 90-degree fitting right off this right here. And that should basically do our fuel system. Completely finish it up. So let's run those lines up to the firewall for the feed and return, mount the regulator, make all our AM lines, make all our connections, and get this fuel system finished up. fuel system, done. Minus some minor wiring, which we'll do when we tackle the ECU install. All our fuel lines are ran all the way up from the pump to the regulator to fuel rails, regulator back, return, clamped, got our filter in there, everything's nice and neat, tidy, looks awesome. Something satisfying about making a nice quality AN fitting and AN fuel system. Nice clean job there. Fuel system done. Again, we'll do the wiring later. It's finally starting to get nice out here in New England. Nice enough where I can reopen the old paint booth, AKA out in the driveway. And we got some painting to do. And I'd like to get this done sooner than later so we can get the motor, you know, together and in the car and good to go. So let's start getting into some of that. So here's what we got. And you guys who've been following the channel are gonna find it familiar, and I'll show you why. And I've talked about this in a previous video, but I just, you know, I just love how it looks. So here's the twin turbo Z06 with the 5.3 that's been stroked out, so technically it's a 6-liter, but anyways, Gen 4 LS, and we've got the candy blue, it's actually a Ford color, sonic blue intake manifold, and gloss black valve covers. I just absolutely love how it looks on black, you know, blue calipers, blue intake manifold, and I think it's going to look good on gray too. I've already got the paint, you know, sonic blue. Any metallic blue color is expensive, so I got almost, you know, half to 3/4 of a pint left. We're going to do the same color scheme. Not really going to cost me anything other than the time to prep, and I know it's going to look good on the metallic gray as well. So, same valve covers as we have on the Z06, smooth, no coil mounts. Going to be doing remote coil mounts on this car. These are also going to be going gloss black. I still need to weld on these aluminum AN fittings or AN bungs for a breather. Not sure what we're doing for a breather on this thing yet, but you know, on this car I ended up having to paint these twice because I had to weld on the bungs, so I'm just going to knock that out before we do any paint work. These are already like a wrinkle or matte black, so we'll sand this down a little bit, then hit them with the gloss black. So that's valve covers. Comes with a chrome oil cap, which we'll be painting new gaskets, new hardware. Here's the OEM LS3 throttle body. This is going to be gloss black, just like that one. And intake manifold, going to be blue. Fuel rails, powder coat, gloss black, or paint. We'll see if they fit in the powder coat oven. I think they do. I think I've done a set before. This is going to be blue. This is a plastic part, so it's going to need, you know, some prep, sanding, adhesion promoter, plastic primer, and then base coat. So we've got prep work to do on all these, and then we'll get them into paint. So yeah, let's get to work prepping these parts, get them painted up, get them on the motor, and see how they look. All right, got updates. Almost ready for paint. Let me show you what I got done. So here's our parts, starting with the intake manifold. So those of you guys that know LS motors know that the intake manifolds have this, texture kind of on most of the runners and most of the intake manifold. So we sanded all those down with a couple different grits, 80, 180, 320. Got that nice and smooth. Then we hit this with adhesion promoter and a couple coats of plastic primer. And then we came back and even wet sanded it again. So this stuff is all, smooth as a baby's bottom. So should look really nice. Actually went an extra step when compared to my Z06, which also came out really nice. So this should come out really good. Throttle body here has been sanded and a couple coats of etching primer, so that should be good to go. Valve covers, I welded on some 10AN breathers for our catch can, including, also did this on the Z06, some baffles. So quick tip for you guys that are making your own catch can. The goal is to get out exhaust or crankcase gases. You don't want the oil coming out. So if you're going to do something like this, you're going to want to put a baffle in there. In this case, just some scrap aluminum that blocks the direct path of oil getting out the breather, but still allows, there's gaps there. That still allows the gases to get out. Same thing on this side. I'll show you a stock valve cover. You'll be able to see what I mean. So here's one of the stock valve covers we got on the motor, just to keep stuff clean. This entire area right here is a baffle. So you can see where, gases can get through, but direct oil splatter can't. That is going to go to your PCV system. So yeah, got some baffles in there. And yeah, these things should be good to go. Same thing, sanded them down. They were powder coated with like a wrinkle finish, so we knocked all that down so it'll be smooth. The areas that we went through, etching primer, and then I just basically hit them, the whole thing with primer. We'll lightly wet sand those. Those will be good to go. Fuel rails, I think I'm going to powder coat just because I know that they'll fit in my little oven and I just don't feel like prepping them. And powder coat, you basically just shoot on the powder and then flow it out. So those will be done. So those are the main things that we got to get painted left for this motor anyways. The intake manifold, valve covers, fuel rails, and throttle body. And I got a little surprise for the intake manifold I think you guys are going to like. So I think earlier in the video, I said I was going to do Sonic Blue because I had it. Well, I've had my eye on this other color. It's a Chevy color. I think it's like Sonic Blue. So just for reference again, this is Sonic Blue. Great color. It looks lighter on video than it really is. It's pretty dark inside. Outside it really looks great. But I went with a new color here. It's called, in this case it's called Blew Me Away, but I actually think it's also called Hypersonic Blue. It's found on like 2017 and 2018 Camaros. I saw it in the sun in the parking lot at work last summer, and it was awesome. Super bright, super metallic. So I'll give you guys a glimpse of that when we open it to get ready for paint. Got enough to do the intake manifold, that color, gloss black throttle body, gloss black valve covers, and gloss black fuel rail. Everything should pop, look really nice. So unfortunately, we ran out of daylight today, and it's also just starting to rain. So my paint booth is outside, so we're waiting on the weather at this point. So we're gonna wait this out, but next time I see you guys, we should have all these parts painted and maybe even pop them on the motor to see how they look. So I'm gonna wait on the weather. We'll see you guys when it's time to paint.
One eternity later.
Yep, paint booth is open. All right, guys, painted parts are done and they came out perfect. So check this out. Boom. What'd I tell you about that hypersonic blue? How insane is this? I'm in love. Absolutely love the color. I think it's my new favorite blue. Sonic blue has been my favorite color for a long time, and this might have just taken the top spot there. It's insane. I mean, I'll show it to you guys in the sun tomorrow. I'm going to let all this stuff cure out in the sun, but I absolutely love it so far. So yeah, hypersonic blue came out absolutely perfect. Bugs started coming out right as I was finishing up. I had to peel one bug out of the clear coat. I just got one tiny nib right there that'll be covered by the fuel rails anyways. Couldn't be happier with this. Same thing, gloss black. Valve covers came out awesome. Perfect finish. Not too shabby for outside. Throttle body, gloss black, good to go. Fuel rails, oil cap. Insane. Really happy with that. So while that's curing up, let's tackle another thing on the list here, and that is ignition components. So here's your stock coil assembly, and any LS guy is going to be familiar with this. It's basically the same for any LS motor. So you have your, this would be, for example, the one bank, drivers or passengers. You have 4 coils, 1 per cylinder, and this is how they're mounted. So here we're on the passenger side. Just place this here just to show you. Basically the coils would be mounted like this on the valve cover, and honestly kind of unsightly. When the LS motor first came out in 1997, critics were, basically saying that this is an ugly motor because the coils are exposed. And this is also why a lot of motors like the Corvette motor come with call a beauty cover, which basically covers this whole area up. So what I like to do, and what a lot of people like to do, is relocate the coils, get them off the valve cover, which makes it look much more like a small block Chevy should. You guys who are on my channel know what that looks like. This is my C06, the LS-based motor. Same exact valve covers that I just painted, and similar color intake manifold, and you can see how much cleaner it looks without the coils on there. It looks really good. In this car, the coils are in the fenders, right about there, just above where the turbos are, and you can see the wires have run, through to the inner fender. So that's what we're going to do in this car. So there's what it looks like stock. I've already assembled one. So these are coil relocation brackets. Basically you stack up the coils, and basically then you can mount them anywhere, any orientation, whatever. You just got to figure out the mounting situation yourself. Normally I make my wires, but I saw this tip on the World Wide Web. Gotta love it. Some guy said you can buy cheap LT1, so 93 to 97 Camaro wires, and then just cut them and crimp them to whatever length you want. So instead of paying $150 for MSD wires and having to make them from scratch, you can basically, I think this was $40 on Summit for 8mm, high quality spark plug wires. So gonna give this a shot, but first we need to figure out where we're gonna mount these. There's not as much room as far as hiding these things in a Camaro engine bay as there is in the Corvettes and some other cars. You can hide them in the fenders, but really in these cars, the inner fenders are basically right there and exposed. So I'm thinking I might actually go under the car and mount them kind of above the headers there. But I'm gonna play around with this a little bit, get this other one mounted up, and let's get these coils mounted. We'll call this coil relocation kit done. Real quick, just going to show you guys how easy it is to make custom spark plug wires. So this is one of the spark plug wires. Again, it's for an LT1 Camaro. So you can see I've already got it in the car. That's where I want the length of the wire to be from the coil to the spark plug. So all we're going to do is pull the insulator off, the 90-degree insulator off the spark plug end, And we're gonna take a box cutter or knife, cut it right at that length. To get that, you can see the actual conductive cores in the center there. And we're gonna use, this is a cheap MSD spark plug crimping tool. It's kind of a multi, or like 3-in-1 tool. So basically the first thing we have to do is strip some of the insulation back, put this through there, and they've already made a little bit of a feature here that tells you exactly how much insulation to strip back. Just run your blade over the top, spin the wire in the tool, pull the insulation right off, just like that. Leaves the conductor right in the middle. And we're gonna grab a new spark plug terminal like this, take it over the bench. Fold the insulator back under the wire, place it in the terminal, place the wire into your tool, and crimp it. So here we go, here's our new wire. Let's add a little bit of lubrication just to get the boot on. I like to use Dawn dish soap. Use it for all sorts of stuff around the garage. Push the boot on. Just like that. This is our custom length spark plug wire. Plug this end into the coil, this end right into the spark plug, and we're done. Let's do the other 7. Call this good. Man, I absolutely love how that looks. I just love it. So yeah, guys, we got all these painted parts on. Intake manifold in hypersonic blue, gloss black fuel rails, gloss black valve covers, throttle body. You saw me make my coil pack relocation, which are mounted down near the header collectors there. I think wrapping the headers and maybe making a heat shield, they'll be just fine. Made all of our custom plug wires nice and neat and hidden down there. Looks way better than up on the valve covers. Same thing on the driver's side there. Brand new NGK TR6 plugs. All our accessories are on. I got the AC belt on. I accidentally got the wrong size main drive belt, but we'll fix that later. No big deal. Our fuel line, our last fuel line is made. This thing looks like a motor. And damn, is it a good looking motor, if I do say so myself. I'm absolutely psyched with how this thing looks. I mean, I've had the blue intake manifold on that thing, but this is a better blue. I can't stop looking at it. Might have to repaint that one. It even matches my brake calipers better. But yeah, glad I spent the 25 bucks or whatever for a couple ounces of the hypersonic blue. Man, it really pops. Can't wait to get all this crap off the front end. See how it pops with the, the silver metallic gray paint. But yeah, we got a whole bunch done this video. We basically have, what looks like an actual LS motor in this car. Looks really good. There's still plenty of stuff to do on the list, but the main thing we need to get to now, I mean, the drivetrain's in the car, fully bolted in, most of it's there. The main thing we need to do now is wiring, and I have all the parts to do that as well. So This video is already pretty long. I'm gonna save that for the next one. You guys aren't gonna wanna miss it. Before you know it, we're gonna be starting this thing up and we're gonna have a officially running LS swap 69 Camaro. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We'll see you then.